The Atlantic Division is absolutely stacked with fantasy value. And on the latest edition of your daily 30-minute source for fantasy hockey, we are taking a look deep into the Atlantic Division sleepers that you need to know on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, my fantasy degenerates? Happy hump day on this fine September the 24th, and welcome back inside the lab to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, where today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers to FanDuel that bet $5 and hit get $300 in bonus bets. And also, Steele, while we're at it, we couldn't be doing this show without the everydayers who continue to make us their first listen every single day. Before we get to these Atlantic Division sleepers, which I am excited to do so, and if you guys missed any division, tap into the channel, smash that follow button. We've done every single team in all the divisions, so you know what sleepers to target. My friend, my co-host, my brother, Mr. Rodin, has some details for us on both of our listener leagues coming up right around the corner, Steele. So over to you before we get to these sleepers. What's going on with our listener leagues?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate to our listeners out there who want to participate in either the casual or competitive league that the final date to enter is September 27th, this upcoming Saturday. The draw will take place on September 27th. The invites will be sent out on September 28th. So if you are lucky enough to participate and join us this season, you'll get an invite. Make sure to join the league. And it's going to be a super quick turnaround. The drafts will take place October 1st and October 2nd the following week. So once you get those invites, accept, join the league, and we'll get ready for those fantasy drafts because they are coming super quick with the NHL season starting off October 7th. We cannot wait for the puck to drop. That's why we do what we do here on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Flip, I'm going to throw it back over to you to start this episode with your first sleeper pick. Which team, which player, who you looking at for this upcoming year?
We've spoken a lot about this Atlantic Division in terms of we think this is the cream of the crop. And really, there's going to be a couple of good squads here left on the outside looking in. And just looking at the standings quickly, Red Wings, we like to take a step. The Montreal Canadiens could be for real. The Ottawa Senators already took that step. And then you have the top three teams that should probably be right there back in the mix as those three. And let me start with the Ottawa Senators. After Dylan Cozens shifted cities, we talk a lot about, that change in scenery kind of reinvigorating a player's fantasy value. This is the case with Dylan Cozens, who went to Ottawa and basically hit everything that moved. 57 hits in his 21 games as an Ottawa Senator, along with 16 points. Makes me pay attention to this player. A guy who also, Steele, gets a lot of penalty minutes, 68 penalty minutes last year, and he's averaged right and around 40 and 50. So what I'm trying to spit out here is you're getting a lot of peripheral love in banger leagues from Dylan Cozens. What's interesting is here, the deployment this year so far in camp and in these preseason games for Ottawa has Dylan Cozens with Fabian Zetterlund and Michael Amadio on this quote-unquote third line with Shane Pinto in between Tkachuk and Giroux. I still think that second line center spot is Dylan Cozens. However, Shane Pinto is a good player too that could fit the mold here as a sleeper as well. I went with Dylan Cozens with the better track record, more peripheral coverage, and a player after those big names on Ottawa. I think he fits the sleeper mold very nicely here. I like what's going on with this team. I think they're going to have a big year offensively. Good power play numbers in the top 10 in the league in power play last year. Hit me with Dylan Cozens. I think this is going to be a really good season for a whole bunch of Ottawa Senators.
It really is. This team is shaping up to finally be a consistent threat in the Atlantic Division, especially after what we saw last year. And I agree that Dylan Cozens is the better option over Shane Pinto going into this season. I still don't think we've seen that consistency from Shane Pinto over the last couple of years. And Dylan Cozens, like you spoke about with Josh Norris, both those guys getting a fresh start with their respective new clubs. And Dylan Cozens should be in the top 6. he should be on the first power play unit. And he puts his nose in every place where it probably shouldn't be, but he's going into every single corner, going hard to the net. And like you said, those peripherals jump off the page. Over to the worst team in the Atlantic Division last year. And, we didn't expect them to be that bad, but we did expect the regression. And with the Boston Bruins, I don't want people to forget about Morgan Geekie, because when you look at the rankings of the Boston Bruins, David Pastrnak, he's in the top 10. He could be top 5 potentially, but he's in the top, at least in the top 10. Every single other player for the Boston Bruins is outside the top 125. They are way out there, and that speaks volumes to what this Boston Bruins teams offer for fantasy value. But I don't want people to forget about Morgan Geekie. A breakout season, 57 points, 150 hits, 110 hits as well. Slowly developed over the last couple of years with Carolina, with Seattle, now with Boston the last 2 seasons. And he has gotten better and better every single year. So when I look at Morgan Geekie, he has a bigger expanded role. He's going to be playing in the top 6 minutes. He showed flashes of consistency and strong two-way play last year. He's smart. He's versatile forward who can chip in offensively while handling those defense assignments. Yep. And he quietly put up a career-high number last season. So he could benefit very, very well from Boston's need for a secondary scoring. It can't just be David Pastrnak. They're going to be looking to Morgan Geekie for that secondary scoring as well. And an underrated source of points, face-off wins he needs to do a better job in, potentially a sneaky power play time as well. And again, should be playing on that top line with David Pastrnak and Elias Lindholm. They had some great chemistry last year. Morgan Geekie, an ADP of 165.8. So he's going somewhere in between round 12 and 13. And I think you can get him even lower than that. This is a sleeper pick at its finest.
This is a deep cut as well in terms of kind of like what I was talking about with the Pittsburgh Penguins yesterday. This is a tough sell. The Boston Bruins were only outscored last year by the Flames, Ducks, Preds, and Sharks. And I think they will be right there at the bottom of the table in terms of goals for this year. Also, I don't know if you saw David Pastrnak yesterday on Tuesday afternoon speaking to the media, Steele. He's been managing an injury. He's going to continue to have to deal with it. And take this in. He couldn't answer straight up about overall how long he's going to continue to deal with it. All he said was he's going to have to manage a knee issue. And then you add the pressure of literally carrying
this ain't good
on his back. And that makes me wary of my first round pick, that if I do have one of those 6th, 7th, or 8th spots, I was feeling pretty good about Pasta. And then you dig into the numbers these Bruins have and the injury and who he's playing with. This might be one of those situations that you see David Pastrnak slide a little. Would you be mistaken to do that until we really see what he is going to do on the ice? I don't want to say you would be, because now I'm really wary, Steele. I like this angle with Morgan Geekie because he still is really kind of progressing and evolving as a really good peripheral option in Banger League.
Yeah.
So I like it. I like a few more players here. I'll talk about them after the break. This Atlantic Division is going to be one that pops off all season long. We hope the rest of today's episode does the same. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. And you know the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers that bet $5 with that bet winning $300 back in bonus bets. We love using the FanDuel app, live in play, same game parlays, future bets, and very safe, secure, and quick payouts. It's the best spot to be making wagers, plain and simple. And if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app today by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. Place that first $5 bet.
Once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review for your boys here, Livingstone and Steele Rodin. Over to the Buffalo Sabres for their sleeper pick. Okay. I know that you talked about Josh Norris last week and the potential for him to really be, sort of along the same lines of how you just spoke about Dylan Cozens. Fresh start for both these players in a new town, in a new city, with a new franchise. And I know you spoke very highly of Josh Norris. I couldn't pull that trigger myself just because of those scary injuries that he's been dealt over the last couple of years. I mean, that shoulder, I don't know how strong that shoulder is. So
Fair.
I had to go a different route. However, I do want to, give you hands. I want to show some appreciation for the Josh Norris take because he should be in the top 6. He should be playing with Tage Thompson. So it is definitely a sleeper pick. However, I went with Jack Quinn of the Buffalo Sabres, still a player that's going to be playing in the top 6. He's going to be playing with Kulich. He's going to be playing with Alex Tuch. And this is a very creative winger with strong puck handling and a goal scorer's release. I know it doesn't look like it when you look at his statistics on online, but he does have a really good goal scorer's touch. Injury did derail him a couple of seasons ago, but he still has this chance, again, playing in the top 6 with those guys, with those elite forwards. Fits well alongside the other Buffalo young core, Thompson, Tuch, Norris, who I just mentioned as well. And if he stays healthy, he could easily surpass expectations and have a breakout season as a potential 50-plus point player. He had 39 points last year in 74 games, 123 shots, 39 hits, 23 blocks. He's still 23, 24 years old, a lot to learn and a lot to grow into for Buffalo. But there's a reason they drafted him in the first round, 8th overall back in 2020. He has elite upside, and I think Jack Quinn could be one of those very sneaky forward players that you can draft on the very last pick of your fantasy draft.
This Buffalo Sabres team is a head-scratching one because they really started to finally point the needle in the right direction a couple of seasons ago. We had the stepping out of Tage Thompson for the first time, a couple of really good years from guys like Alex Tuch and, Rasmus Dahlin, obviously. Last year, such a disappointment, and, even the year before that as well, a disappointment. Headed into this season, maybe now, I know it's kind of funny to say expectations were ever high in Buffalo, but they're definitely not high this season, and maybe that's a good thing for a really young squad. When I look at Jack Quinn, this is a situation for me that, he's obviously lacked in confidence and had a tough time sticking in that lineup, ice time being a concern as well. The hands are there. The offensive upside are there, and last year, the Buffalo Sabres finished 10th in the NHL in scoring. So clearly, the top 6, some pieces on the blue line, they can score goals. So that offers some intrigue. I got 3 players left, Steele. Let me go through my next one kind of quickly. The Tampa Bay Lightning are very interesting. Gage Gonsalves is a player that I'm not going to stand on here and say I've watched a ton of Gage Gonsalves hockey. However, second-round draft pick who lit up the AHL over his last couple of tastes in the AHL, which really established him now as an everyday NHLer in the top 6 on Tampa Bay. Speaking of goals for, Tampa Bay Lightning last year scored the most in the NHL. Yeah, he's not playing with Gensel, Point, or Kucherov, but that second line right now where he's projected to play with Cirelli and Hagel, and if he's going to get anything more than what he did last year of 12 minutes of ice time per night, 20 points in 60 games, he plays 82. The minutes go up. You're now looking at a guy in the 40 to 50 point realm. And as a sleeper, that could be the difference on a really good team that could take you over the top. He's not going to get power play 1 time, but if he gets some decent power play 2 times, Cirelli, Hagel on the secondary power play, more value. This is a team that is kind of hard to pick out a sleeper. Gonsalves, for me, fits the mold. Not a big sample size, but if he was killing at the AHL and John Cooper trusts in him, it's good enough for me. If he sticks in that top 6 and minutes go up, he will be a player that no one's looking at, and you can thank Uncle Flip later on that one. Tampa will return to the top of the table in the Atlantic Division this year. That's a top 3 team. I can pretty much say that with some serious confidence.
I'm going to call you Uncle Flip from now on.
Thank
you, Uncle Flip, for this
Appreciate
take and
that.
for this option. Really good option for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I also would like to throw in Oliver Bjorkstrand into the mix as a sleeper pick. I just think there is potential for him to maybe crack the top 6 depending on injuries and chemistry. But a guy for me who maybe more so a streaming option throughout the year, but I've really liked Oliver Bjorkstrand for what he brings to the table, especially with his time with the Seattle Kraken the last
on
few
the top power
seasons.
play unit, by the way, Steele, not to cut you off there. He's currently skating on that top
Great
power
point.
play unit. So
Great point. So, you got Kucherov, you got Braden Point, you got, he probably won't be on it, but I like that he is on it as we're speaking right now. It's most likely going to be Point, Gensel, Kucherov, Victor Hedman, and Gensel. So strong power play, some really good strong options for those sleeper picks. Let's go back to the let's go over to the Detroit Red Wings. And I know, again, you spoke about Marco Kasper and the potential that he can bring playing in that top six, playing as that second line centerman with Alex DeBrincat and Patrick Kane. I'm actually going to go to his line mate, Patrick Kane, as the sleeper option for this season. ADP of 162.8. So he's on average getting drafted in that 12th round. I think you can get him a little bit later, maybe in the 13th or 14th, but that's where he's typically going right now. And even at 37 years old, he's still an elite playmaker with vision, still dangerous on the power play, even if the speed has clearly dipped, which it has. Still posted strong numbers, especially after that hip surgery a year and a half ago. Still has that chemistry with Alex DeBrincat, Dylan Larkin, Marco Kasper as well, who's a really good option. And that top unit will get a lot of boost. So he's locked into the power play one time, where his passing and zone entries still drive the offense. Many will discount him because of his age and obviously the hip surgery and the lack of speed that he now has. But in my honest opinion, he had 59 points in 72 games last year. There is still potential for Patrick Kane to put up 60 to 70 points. If he plays over 75 games, close to a full season, gets the top power play time, he's getting close to 18 minutes of average ice time still. So don't sleep on Patrick Kane. He only has that right wing position for those position leagues. So you're not going to get the dual eligibility or the flexibility of left wing, right wing with Patrick Kane. However, if he stays healthy, 60, 70 points is still in the realm for one of the most elite players we've seen over the last decade.
Two things jump to mind right away. This is a classic case for me of the hands are still money, and a player who has this much talent, even though the body is somewhat failing him or letting him down, the hands, money, skill set, money, offensive flair, and vision, perhaps even better. And second thing, his career chemistry with Alex DeBrincat. So put him in the mix. You throw Marco Kasper in the mix, taking a step. That could be a very important second line for the Detroit Red Wings quickly. Mackie Samoskevich on the Florida Panthers is a player that I think we mentioned a few times on waiver wire last year. Very attractive waiver wire ad, and maybe that's where he returns, Steele, because I'm probably not drafting this guy unless I'm taking a flyer at the end of drafts in a really deep league. I think you kind of can leave him to an injury fill or a week 1 or 2 stream. Right now, however, headed into the season, especially while Matthew Tkachuk is still out for a number of months, Samoskevich is currently slotted in on that second line. Sam Bennett and Evan Rodriguez don't exactly jump off the page for offensive flair, but that's a good second line. And last season, as I almost knocked my mouse into the abyss here, 15 goals, 16 assists, 134 hits. This is a kid at only 22, 23 years old as a 24th overall draft pick only a couple of years ago. I've liked what I've seen from this player. And, small sample size for sure. But of all the players that I'm talking about on today's show, of the underrated, unsung, overlooked sleepers, he has a really good opportunity here on the back-to-back Stanley Cup champs to really do his thing as a young player. Sam Bennett and Evan Rodriguez are the veterans. He can go out there and do his thing. So this could be huge for a player that last year also Steele got that done in 13 minutes of ice time. Finished 11th in Calder voting. Just going to throw that out there because even myself, I think, have overlooked this player a little bit. I see a ton of value in Samoskevich. He's on the Florida Panthers, people. Let's not overthink this one.
He might as well be the mascot for our Monday waiver wire episodes because we talked about him on a bi-weekly basis. I mean, he was pretty much almost on every single episode. So really good option, especially for those deep formats, maybe better for a streaming option throughout the Florida Panthers season for an advantageous schedule. However, we got some more Atlantic sleepers coming to you after the break. Thank you so much for tuning into the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast, and we'll see you back after the break. Once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review for your boys here, Flip Livingstone and Steele Rodin. Flip, I'm going to get to my last team, my last player, and then throw it back over to you. Montreal Canadiens. And this is an absolute gold mine for me. I mean, you can't look up and down this lineup and not find someone that you want to draft, especially in the top 6, especially in the top 4 D pairing with Laine, Hudson, Noah Dobson, Mike Matheson. I really like Sam Montembeault as that one of those 0G goaltenders going into the season. And I know you talked about Zach Bolduc, so I didn't want to come on here and talk about him again. But even so, he is a really good option going into this season. I wanted to talk about Patrik Laine. So he is my sleeper going into the year. And when you look at Patrik Laine, we all know that he has been dealt probably the worst hand over the last 7 years of his National Hockey League career. You know, his ADP right now is 174.8. He's typically getting drafted in the 13th round. And even with all those injuries, I still want to believe he's an elite sniper in this league. You know, you go back to his first 3 seasons in the league, 30 plus goals, one of the best one-timers in the game. He's lethal on the power play. With the fresh start in Montreal, giving him the chance to play with Suzuki, Caulfield, Demidov, Kirby Dach in that top 6, it's a really good opportunity. And unfortunately, he just hasn't been able to stay healthy wherever he's gone. So I'm really hoping that he can, you know, have a change of luck, have a change of, mindset going into this season as well. Canadians really lacked a true trigger man over the last couple of years. Cole Caulfield has really come into that fruition himself. I think Laine still fills that role perfectly, which could boost both his and his line mates' numbers. And while injury risks still linger, if he can play over 70 games, I think 30, 35 goals is still within reach for this player, maybe 65, 70 points, again, staying healthy. And I want to bring up what Martin St. Louis had to say a couple of days ago about Patrik. You know, Martin St. Louis, you know, he said, again, I'm quoting him here, didn't have an opportunity to really coach him early because he got hurt. And then when he came back from the injury, it's hard not to give him a little bit of a runway just to find his joy again with hockey, playing once again, and again, coming back from multiple injuries. He also said that this might be the best version of Patrik Laine that we see this upcoming season. He's put a lot of work in on the ice, off the ice, mentally trying to get himself regrouped and refocused, playing with an elite club because he had a very disappointing postseason last year with Montreal in that first round. He worked on his game. He's worked on his health. He's worked to get back to this stage of his career. And let's not forget, he's only 27 years old. He's just getting to his prime. So if he gets some lucky cards dealt his way this season, he can stay healthy. I really like Patrik Laine as one of those sleeper picks.
I'm not going to go out there and get crazy and say Patrik Laine is the key to this team's success this season. But what I will say is if he can return to the form that we saw him when he is healthy, and obviously that's a huge caveat here. You covered it. We don't need to say it anymore. It's been very much between the ears for Patrik Laine as well. Confidence. He's spoken about his mental health issues. And this isn't a show where we will ever get at somebody for sharing their mental health struggles. However, I do think if he can find some form steal and add a wrinkle and take some pressure off some of these guys that they're looking to really carry that load this year, Hudson, Suzuki, Caulfield, even a rookie in Demidov, a veteran like Patrik Laine, if he starts to pop off, this team becomes very hard to match up against. And that adds a whole wrinkle, especially on the power play, which this guy's almost become a power play specialist with that one-timer bullet that he rocks. This is a really important player for the Montreal Canadiens this year. And if that happens, he's going to be equally as important to your fantasy success. Mattias, Miccelli, Everyone's talking about him, Steele, because he's getting a look with Austin Matthews. Does that stick? We don't know. This is a player, though, only a couple of years removed from fourth in Calder voting. He's shown that he has some offensive upside. I find him to be much more of a distributor, much more of a pass-first type player. He needs to be that playmaker that finds some chemistry with Austin Matthews and open up some opportunity for 34. Mm-hmm. This is the season that, and this is not a crazy take, Mitch is gone now. Everyone knows this. The pressure is on Austin Matthews more than ever before. And he can say everything he wants and play it cool all day, and I love that. The injuries, the lack of success, quote unquote, all of it, it's big for him. So if he can get a little bit of love from a new player coming in, and I mean like offensive love, sharing the production here, Miccelli will stick at least for the beginning of the season because there isn't too many other sexy options here. So if that happens, Steele, this could be fantasy gold. Right now, it's risky. And yeah, okay, he's projected and he's getting rushes and he's playing with Matthews. There's no guarantee here. But after this, Steele, a sleeper on this Toronto team, it gets kind of haggard. I don't want to throw out Max Domi. Bobby McMahon has been crazy inconsistent. Those would be the other couple that might fit in there. To me, the offensive upside, what we did see in a couple of good years, only 2 years ago, 57 points in 82 games. He's played with some good options with the Arizona/Mammoth situation. Let's see what he does with 34. Right now, he's very sexy. And, you know, I could see a lot of GMs out there making him maybe their last forward and hoping it sticks. I wouldn't go any higher on him because it's just too risky. Final round, you need a forward, take a shot. He is a sleeper, most definitely.
I think you're going to see a lot of mix and match with the Toronto Maple Leafs this year, and they're really going to have to depend on depth scoring a lot more. Max Domi, Nicholas Robertson, Bobby McMahon, Calle Yarncroke. You're going to have to get some depth scoring, but hopefully we can get some more consistency with McMahon, with Robertson. You'd like to see it. Those are the Atlantic sleeper picks. Again, if you missed some of our latest episodes for the other divisions, Pacific, Central, Metropolitan, check out the channel, your favorite podcast platform. You can find everything you need to know on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast. Thank you so much for making it your first listen every single day. For your second listen, you know what it is. You got to go check out the Locked On NHL podcast. They bring you the daily league-wide stories that matter the most with local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And we'll see you back here again tomorrow.